Hi, and welcome to Flash. We are going to learn how to create a portfolio, or at least the starter file for a portfolio today. And the first thing is when you start Flash is to select Flash File ActionScript 2.0. We want to create a layer called Labels. So we'll take that layer name and we'll change that to Labels. And let's create another layer. And that layer will change to Actions. That will hold our scripts that we're going to write to stop the timeline. And then let's create a layer called Titles. And this is where we'll put some graphics so that we can see the timeline change places. And then of course we're going to need a layer for some of our interactivity. So let's put a layer here called Buttons. And we can arrange these in any order. When you start designing, you'll see that some things need to be in the background. Now our labels are just going to be placeholders, so we can put that on top. And I like to put the actions up there. And our buttons and our titles can stay right there. So I'm going to go ahead and create a label for frame 1. Come down to my properties inspector here, and this would be the main. Hit enter. You'll see a flag appears up here. Now we can't read the name because we don't have enough frames. So let's go up to frame 10 and insert a keyframe. Now the shortcut for a keyframe is F6. And then on frame 10, now we can see our name there. On frame 10, let's insert a label. And this would be About. Hit enter. And again, you'll notice the flag. Let's go to frame 20. Insert keyframe using our shortcut F6. The F6 key, by the way, is along the top row, if you don't know where that is, of your keyboard. And for this one, I'm going to put 3D. Hit enter. And then on frame 30, F6, this would be Artwork. Enter. And then I'll just put a frame here so that you can see the words. Now we can fill in our actions later, and at this point I'm going to put a title here and my main. So I'm going to go to my main or my titles layer, and on the first frame I can go ahead and I can add some text or graphics. Now it's important to understand that when laying this out you can use the ruler and guide. So we'll get the ruler, and then as we drag down we can set guides. Just clicking on the ruler and dragging creates these guidelines, and we can bring more of them out to see where things are going. We can move them. So if I want that there, and then if I want to bring another one down here, and as I lay this out, then I can place my content on the screen and be a little more organized. Alright, for our first title, I'm going to use my text tool and bring my properties inspector up again to change the color of the text, the font, and the size. I'll then type in here portfolio, and then I can lock that right there. Now what I can do with this is I can always change its style and its font afterwards, all that. So that's nice. But we don't want that font. Let's go back to our standard for Donna, and then to allow that to be visible for so many frames, I'll just go over to where my next frame is where I want something else to say. I'm going to go here, insert timeline, keyframe, and then that's a keyframe right there, so I'll just delete my text, and then in place of that let's put some more text. This would be About Me. And this is the heading or the title for our next section of our portfolio. So it would be here at the main, my portfolio, and then when they click on a button it'll jump to frame 10 and play and do whatever it needs to do. And same thing here at frame 20. Insert a keyframe using our shortcut F6. And I'm going to delete that text. So that clears that text out of that frame, you can see. Go back, select that frame, text, and 3D design. And we'll place that right there. That's why we have our guidelines. You can even use your arrow keys to nudge. And let's put one more title up, F6. Let's delete our text and hit our last one, which is artwork. Alright. Bring that down. And there we go. And let's just finish off. I'll put a frame here, F5, just so that it's there for all that. So now, if I played this and I wanted to test it, it would just play and it would loop because we don't have any stops or anything, and that's the way a Flash movie would be. But we'll put some strategic stops in here using our actions layer to hold our scripts. Alrighty. So now we need to make some buttons. And in order to do that, we need to insert a new symbol. So let's go ahead and insert a new symbol here. I'm going to create a button. And the first button I'm going to make, I'm going to have 3 navigational elements here. My About, my 3D, and my Artwork. So let's make the About button. And it's of type button. It's very important. And it'll bring up the creating button section. And we have our basic states for the button. The up state, the over state, the down state, and then the hit state defines the edges or the area of the button. So let's say for our up state, we'll add a little text here. And we'll make it definitely smaller. And this would be about me. And we could add a little bit of a graphic. We could even change the color up a little bit if we wanted to. I'm going to just add a little graphic. We'll leave the color same. I'm going to add a little graphic right here with our oval tool. And I'll put that right there. And then I can move this around. It's okay. You can use your selection tool and move this around. What I'm going to do is, by going to the overstate now and selecting insert keyframe, F6, it copies over everything. And that way I can just take the elements in there and change them ever so slightly so that as you roll over the button, you'll have a rollover effect. I could even do a little something to the graphic if I wanted to. I could put just a little effect on there with a little bit of a dot. Let's see. Something like that, so that as they roll over, you have that type of neat little thing going on. Alright, now the down state of the button, let's just carry that over. That just means what is it going to look like when they click the mouse down. Alright, and so we have up, over, and then our hit state is very important. That is going to define where the button is. And I like to just use the rectangle tool and fill it with black to define where my button is. So there, and there. And you can zoom in a little bit if it helps you to finish it off. And that should be good. That's a nice defined area right there. Now you don't need the text in there or anything, but it's not going to hurt it. So now as we come out back to our scene, notice we're in the button. Let's get back out to our scene. And as we come out to here, we could then take our button, which has now been put in our library, and we can bring our button to our stage. Notice that I'm on the buttons layer. Very important. Alright, very important. Now I don't have to do that whole process over again. I can just take this button, right click, and duplicate it. We can give it a new name, and I can call this the 3D button. And all I have to do now is go into the 3D button, okay, and edit it. So let's edit the 3D button and just change the appropriate parts. So this would be 3D design. On the overstate, we would just change the text again. And the downstate, 3D design. Now the hit state's fine because that's just an area and we can leave that text in there. It's just the definition. So there's our other button. Come out here. And let's see, back on frame 1, on the buttons layer, we can add our 3D button. Now we should do that one more time. Let's duplicate it again and change its name. This is our art button, and we want to edit it and change the text to artwork. Same thing with the overstate and the downstate. And of course the hit state's all set. There we go. Back to scene 1. And let's drag our art button up to our stage. There we go. Now we could test this by hitting Control Enter. And you'll notice that it just zings by and the buttons are just flashing because the buttons are only on one frame. So we need to fix that by going over here and inserting frames all the way by pushing the F5 key, and that means that all of the frames will have the buttons on that layer. Test it again. You'll notice that we have overstates as we roll over, but this is not right because this is just going through the timeline from frame 1 to 40, then back 1 to 40. So we need to put stops in there, and that's where our actions layer comes in. So let's go to our actions layer, and the first thing I want to do is when it comes and plays the movie and it gets to frame 9 right here, I'm going to insert a keyframe or F6 shortcut, and at that keyframe there, has to be a keyframe, we can put an action. We can go get our actions library by going to Window, Actions. Now F9 is an important shortcut to remember. Actions, and this is called, in the global functions under timeline control, it's a stop. Okay, so we'll add a stop, and then at frame 20 or 19 here, we're going to insert a keyframe, and we're going to add another stop. And the same thing with this frame. We're going to insert a keyframe, add a stop, and then also at frame 39 or 40 in this case, we could insert a keyframe. Notice that we can now add a stop to that, and then we can close our actions window. And what this is going to do is as we click a button to go to about, it's going to jump to the frame 10 here, or to where our label is. It'll play anything we want, and then it'll stop here and wait for us to interact again. So let's go ahead and do that now. As we test it, you'll see that it'll stop, and then we just have to program our buttons to jump to our specific spots. Let's do that now by clicking on the button. You cannot put these button scripts on a frame like this. You have to choose a specific button. So I select the button first, get our window for actions, which is F9, and this time I have to use a movie clip control because the command needs a little bit of a wrapper, a handler. We're going to choose on, release, and you need to be in between the brackets, and we want to go to and play at a certain spot. And I already have labels up here. I could tell it frame 10 or frame 20 or frame 30, but I'm going to use my labels and go to the About label. And the same thing with the 3D design button. I'm going to choose on, release, and we're going to go to and play from the 3D label. And one more, artwork, which is right there. We're going to go on, which is a movie clip control, on, release is the event, and then the action is to go to and play at frame 30, or which is our artwork label, artwork, And don't forget your quotes. They have to be in quotes. They will not work, the frame labels. And that looks good. Let's go ahead and test it. Control Enter. About, 3D design, and artwork. And now you're ready for the next step, which is to start animating some of the elements in your portfolio. Thank you.